blog about the future of rail in August last year, and I think it's safe to say things have changed quite a lot since then. In the blog, you outline the potential trends and disruptors that are on the horizon as a result of the fourth industrial revolution. Can you talk about what you think the trends are in 2020?
You're absolutely right. I did write a blog. It wasn't done long ago, but it seems a century away now, with all the changes that have come into being as a result of the pandemic. Clearly, a lot has changed, but some things have stayed the same. Our fight against climate change hasn't gone away. If anything, we're going to have to intensify what we do over the next decades to try and prevent climate change becoming a real disaster. Because if we move into the so-called runaway climate change, then humanity is doomed, in my view. So clearly what we need to do now is use this period to invest, to do a lot of the things that we were planning with regards to decarbonisation. But we've got the additional threat that I think we had a growing trend of people working from home, which has an impact on the use of public transport. Clearly a lot of people have now been working from home for months, and it may be a year or over a year before a vaccine is found when people could safely return in many instances back to their offices. So I think we're not going to go back to the 9-to-5 pattern we had previously. And that has an additional challenge on the work that we do and our members do. But I tell you something, we really cannot have decarbonisation without investment in public transport. And we cannot have decarbonisation without moving freight over roads and into rail. So overall, even though we're suffering a blip at the moment, I think that things will return to some kind of normality, even if traveling patterns never recover to what they used to be before. But we should be encouraging the use of that additional capacity that is going to be freed for either moving more freight on rail or for leisure travel. So I'm quite hopeful that once we get out of this pandemic, once we have a vaccine in place, once people are reassured that it's safe to travel, that we will be returning to some kind of normality.
You said that we need a just transition and emphasise the importance of amplifying our members' voices in the process. You've had quite a lot of discussion with the Department of Transport and mayors and local mayors recently. What do you think are the next stages?
Well, the next stages, and this is really important because, we've had the health emergency now, and it's really important we deal with that. But everybody knows that we're going to get an economic crisis as a result of this pandemic. And we also know, sadly, there's research now emerging that it might be a crisis of well-being, particularly among mental health, that there'll be a legacy to this pandemic. And what we need to do now is to continue to influence decision makers as a trade union, as part of a wider labour movement, so that the decisions that are made going forward are the right ones. And that means amplifying what our members are saying, because our members are the experts. I'm not the expert as a General Secretary. It's the people on the ground that tell me what needs to be done, who are the real experts. And my job is to make sure that that voice is heard in high places. Clearly, I'm not the only person doing that. We have got some of our executive committee members who are involved with some of the regional transport authorities, and that work will continue going forward. But I think it's vital, if we're going to have a just transition, one that leaves no one behind, we need to ensure that the voice of working people is at the top table. And the way to do that, frankly, the easiest tool we as working people have got at our disposal to do that is for the union to be sat at the top table.
You talked about the environment a lot before, but in the blog you emphasised that public transport and working with our grassroots reps network is part of the solution to this. Do you still think that?
Absolutely. It's now even more important than ever that our reps are involved in conquering the challenges of climate change, but also ensuring that we have a just transition where no one is left behind. I've already said that we expect a deep economic crisis as a result of the pandemic. That is going to make our society less equal than it was before. And we already had huge inequalities in place. So clearly, for example, the work of our equality reps is to ensure that there are audits put in place to make sure that no one is left behind. The role of a negotiating rep is to ensure that companies adopt policies going forward that help decarbonize our planet. Our learning reps have got a crucial role to play in this, because they can bust all the jargon and explain in simple terms to our members what needs to be done to ensure that climate change is conquered. And last, but by no means least, are our health and safety reps, the people who can go out and carry out environmental audits in the workplace. So I think it's more important than ever that if we are going to conquer the challenges of climate change, if we're going to have a voice going forward with regards to the deep economic crisis that sadly this pandemic has created, that the voice of our reps, the voice of our activists has to be at the center of everything we do.